From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Simon Conway.
Oh, I love this one. And another hit is the new Peugeot 108 collection. Choose from laser red or golden yellow with matching interior. There's a reversing camera, connected technology, keyless entry and 15-inch alloys. All from $159 per month on Passport Personal Lease. The Peugeot 108 collection, tailored for you. 1645 initial, 4043 final and 46 monthly rentals. This is a finance lease, you will not own the car. Peugeot Motor Company PLC is a credit broker, not a lender. Excess mileage restrictions, terms and conditions apply. PSA Finance UK Limited.
This is LBC, leading Britain's conversation. Call 0345 6060 973. Tweet at LBC. Text 84850.
Good morning. You're listening to me, Sadiq Khan, the Mayor of London, taking your calls exclusively on LBC for the next half an hour. I want to hear from you. Ask me anything you want. You can call on 0345 606 0973 or text on 84850, or you can tweet at LBC with the hashtag Speak to Sadiq. So, James, who's the first caller?
I think we've got Johnny in Crystal Palace. Good morning, by the way.
Good morning, James. How are you?
Slipping straight into it, isn't he? Hey, all right, do you want a cup of tea? You all right there? Neck rub?
I've been reassured you've had breakfast. You're in a good mood. I did check. The first question I asked to your team, has James had breakfast? And I'm reassured you have.
All right, well, I'll assume my switchboard duties. Johnny is in Crystal Palace. Morning, Johnny.
Hello.
Morning, Johnny.
Hi, yeah. Hello. First of all, I just wanted to say thank you for running the London is Open campaign.
My pleasure.
I think it's, immigration's been demonised by certain parts of the media, and it's really nice to see it being so well praised. So my question's in two parts, really. First of all, what could you do to give assurances to EU nationals who are already living here? Because I saw that the government is already looking to overturn the Lord's Amendment yesterday.
Yeah.
And secondly, what powers will he have to ensure that London will continue to benefit from immigration after we leave the EU? Because I think it's something that we really vitally need.
Well, Johnny, thanks for your question. And James, Johnny has shown the art of asking two questions in one. One question in two parts is the way to do it. Well done, Johnny. Johnny, look, I mean, the reason why I had this campaign, London is Open, and we're going to carry on with it, was after Brexit, I was concerned that an impression would be given to the wider world that we're going to start being inward-looking and insular. And if you look at London's secret, the foundations of our excess is us being open to ideas, people and trade for more than 1,000 years. And so I said loudly and clearly to the 1 million Londoners, and these are 1 million Londoners who are originally from Italy, Portugal, Spain, Poland, Germany, other parts of the EU. You are welcome here. You make a massive contribution to our city, socially, culturally and economically, and that's not going to change. So I welcome the vote last night in the House of Lords, which is basically saying to the government, don't use people as bargaining chips. Give the 1 million Londoners, the 3.3 million Europeans across the UK, the certainty of knowing they have a future in London. And let me tell you why. There are mums and dads worrying about where their sons and daughters will go to schools next year. There are people thinking of starting businesses, not sure what to do, and people expanding, not sure whether to expand. So I think the government should give that certainty to these Londoners. The second part of your question was about what powers we need once we've exited the European Union. And let me be quite frank about this, John. Look, I accept the verdict of the British public. I'm thoroughly disappointed. I'm really proud that London was the only region in England to vote to remain in the EU, but we lost the referendum. Now, what the British people voted to do was to leave the EU, was to leave the structures of the EU and leave the legal institutions. What they didn't vote to do was to make ourselves poorer. And so it's really important that I have these regular meetings with David Davis and the government. I meet at least once a month. I met David Davis this week, and I'm impressing on them what we need as a city to continue to be successful. And one of that, Johnny, is the continued ability to attract talent.
Do you understand, Meghan, why Theresa May won't move quicker to safeguard the future of... I'm sure, like me, you were in receipt of communications from people whose entire lives have been thrown into complete turmoil, and she could act now to address that. Do you understand why she won't?
Well, before I was a Member of Parliament, I was a lawyer, and I did lots of litigation. Often we'd negotiate cases and we'd reach a resolution amicably. And there is a basic premise that people who don't understand how to negotiate think is you can't ever expose what your strategy is. I think it's possible to say to our European partners, look, we're going to guarantee the rights of the EU citizens here. And, that doesn't mean that we've given them an upper hand. It recognises that these people contribute massively to our
So you
country.
don't understand why she won't do it?
I think she's making a colossal mistake. I can understand the argument she's putting forward, which is that there are Brits living in the EU, and why should we guarantee rights of EU in the UK without a reciprocal guarantee? But these are people we're talking about. I've met literally mums and dads, business people, men and women, who the uncertainty is traumatic for them.
And indefinite as well.
Well, listen, I think I understand again why, as a political leader, you want to throw some red meat to your MPs. I understand why, as a political leader, you want to carry favour with certain members of the media. But I think the reality is you've got to recognise these are people whose lives are being affected. And by the way, it also sends the wrong message to people thinking about investing in our country.
I'm going to level with my listeners. I know you've got an announcement to make about this subject, but I was intending anyway to ask you why I am now on my way into work, walking past people sleeping in doorways on a scale that I haven't seen in, well, probably since the early 90s, when my university was around the corner from Lincoln's Inn Fields, and that had become a shanty town. People were living in tents and makeshift huts, and it's beginning to look like that in the streets of the West End. Tents have started appearing over the course of the last 3 months in regular places and frequent instances. What's going on, and what are you going to do about it?
Well, London is one of the richest cities in the world, and it is beyond shameful that over the last 6-7 years, rough sleeping has doubled in one of the greatest cities in the world. I already announced before Christmas a £50 million package which charities and organisations can bid for to help those who are sleeping rough. I've already extended the funding for no second night sleeping out. What I'm announcing today is the first fruits of the task force I set up, which is no night sleeping rough. And what we're announcing today is a package of measures, the first part of which is to help the long-term who are rough sleeping. These are people, James, who may have drugs issues, alcohol issues, mental health issues. So we're targeting the long-term rough sleeping community. The second part of the announcement is to help those who may have no connection with a local authority. Often a local authority will say, look, this person is not from my borough, so why should I, provide them with a bed? So we're going to have a Safe Connections passage to help those who have been sleeping more than 2 nights out to get a connection with a borough. It could be in London, it could be outside London. And the third part of the package is something that's very simple. James, there is no hostel central database. It's like, in August when young people get their A-level results and there's clearing for university place. There's no clearing for rough sleepers for hostels. So we're going to set up a database. So if, for example, somebody is sleeping rough in a borough in South London, and somebody wants to help them, there's no spaces locally, this new central database, a clearinghouse, will find a place in north, east, west of London to get this person off the streets of London. It is, I use the phrase beyond shameful. You mentioned what it was like 20, 30 years ago when you were at university. The good news is we know from history it's possible to get rough sleepers off the street. It is possible to end Cardboard City, get rid of the tents. So it has been done in the past. We've got to do it again now.
Without laying all of the blame at the feet of your predecessor or of,
no,
of
you can't do
central
that.
government.
No, it's not as simple as that. It's more complicated.
No, precisely. So what has changed? Why has the pendulum swung so severely in this direction?
A number of things. Firstly, welfare benefits changes have had an impact. We can't run away from that. Mental health issues has had an impact. More than half those people sleeping rough in London aren't originally from London, aren't originally from the UK. Complex immigration issues, these are vulnerable people. Across the piece, whether you go to prisons, whether you go to those who are rough sleeping, a considerable number have mental health issues, alcohol dependent, drug dependent. And so I'm not going to lay all the blame on the previous guy or on the current government, but they've got a role to play.
Should we take another call?
Thanks, James. The next caller is Milan in Chiswick. Hi, Milan.
Hi, morning, Sadiq. Morning, James. My question's about traffic in London. I've been driving for about 20 years, and I've noticed that more and more it's grinding to a halt, and that could be for a number of reasons: population increase, Uber cars, cycle lanes, and roadworks. Just wondered what is a solution to that, get London moving. And there's the associated point of pollution on the roads. Especially with diesel cars spewing out emissions. The journey times have now doubled, I'd imagine.
Sure. Milan, do you drive to and from work? What you say you've been driving for 20 years. What do you do?
I'm a lawyer. I take the train, but if I'm driving to see friends or if I'm
sure.
to see my fiancée in Kent, it takes from Chiswick to Kent, it takes about...
No,
maybe
sure.
2 hours.
Let me add into this a tweet from Toby who says, how do you square the circle of encouraging people to ride bikes whilst also telling them not to breathe too much?
Well, let me give you a scale of the challenge we face, Toby and Milan. The population of London is currently 8.6 million. It's risen by around 1 million in the last 10 years. By 2020, 9 million. By 2030, 10 million. So our population is rising. That's actually a sign of success. You know, compare us with other cities like Paris, which is shrinking. We should be pleased with the fact that we are, growing as a city. But we've got a plan for that growth. And the congestion that you're talking about, Milan, the problems with traffic that Toby was alluding to are caused by a number of factors. A rise in population, but also, when you look at road usage, 23% of road usage is by light goods vehicle, basically delivery vans dropping off things we've ordered on the internet. 21% is minicabs, private hire vehicles. Another 21% is private vehicles on the road. So there are more people using the road in different ways. So we've got to have what's called modal shift, move people away from vehicles to other forms of getting around. Toby alluded to cycling. I've got London's first ever full-time walking and cycling commissioner. We're investing in public transport. The new Elizabeth line will open towards the end of next year, 2018, to increase public transport capacity. We've also got to change the way people shop. So we've got to talk to the delivery companies to think about how we can have consolidation centres to stop them moving around these light goods vehicles. I'm afraid the bad news is I simply don't have the powers to cap the numbers of minicabs in London. To give you an idea of the scale of the challenge, there's roughly speaking 23,000 black cabs, there's 110,000 minicabs, and they've doubled over the last 8 years. So you hear about companies like Uber taking me to court, but actually I'm lobbying the government to give me the power to cap the numbers of minicabs because there's no
Where
point.
would you cap it?
That's a discussion to be had with my experts at TfL.
But it would involve people who've currently got a licence losing it, would it?
What it would mean is we would have a cap, so you wouldn't lose a licence, but there couldn't be the increase to start off with. You'd plateau it over a period of time, then there'd be a reduction. And so you'd look at, for example, what is the optimum number, bearing in mind time of day, weekends, and all the rest of it. It doesn't necessarily mean one cap across the piece 7 days a week, because obviously the weekends are different to rush hour, midweek's different to weekends. But that's a discussion we're having with government. In the meantime, Milan alluded to roadworks. The government, I'm quietly confident, will give us more powers to stop utility companies and others digging up our roads, because as Toby said, the air in London is a killer. More than 9,000 Londoners dying because of poor quality air. Children in parts of London whose lungs are underdeveloped. More than 430 schools in areas where the air is illegal. So we've got to grapple with this issue.
And the obvious question about whether or not you can follow the lead of some European cities and come down a little harder on Uber's proliferation.
Well, I'll use the powers that I've got. So at the moment, I've been taken to court because I'm making what I think is a reasonable request to private hire drivers, saying you should be able to speak a decent level of English. You should have insurance all the time, which is really important in my view. And I've been taken to court over those things.
What's your advice? Are you going to win?
Well, listen, I don't want to talk about a case while it's ongoing, but it's really important we get this right, because let's say, for example, you go into a minicab and you know a quicker route. Let's say, for example, you've got a medical condition. Let's say, for example, TfL publishes new measures and you can't read them. Let's say, for example, there are issues around road safety. So I think that's not unreasonable to say to a minicab driver, you've got to have a basic level of English.
Have you any idea what the number? I don't suppose you have. I mean, when the test comes in, how many people would be likely to fail it? Is a completely speculative figure.
These are one of the things that Uber are arguing about.
Right.
And for this reason, we've delayed the start date from April until September to give minicab drivers more time to reach the requisite standard. OK, thanks, James. The next call, I'm told, is Catherine in Campbelltown. Hi, Catherine.
Hi, Sadiq. How are you?
Not bad at all. You OK?
I'm fine, thanks. I wanted to ask you about a tweet you made on Saturday before addressing the Scottish Labour conference.
Sure.
In which you said there's no difference between those who try to divide us on the basis of whether we're English or Scottish and those who try to divide us on the basis of our background, race and religion. I just wanted to ask you, do you stand by this? And if so, why would you traduce nearly half of the Scottish population?
Well, Catherine, can I just clarify what I said in Perth on Saturday? And if you've got time, please do read my speech or watch it. It's very
Which
well
version?
on YouTube. the speech I delivered.
Not the speech you released.
Well, this is an important point, James,
I
because,
know.
I think,
I've watched it.
Well, thank you, Catherine, and you'll see what I was talking about. I was talking about being a proud patriot. I was talking about how, just like London needs the UK needs London. I was talking about how a plumber in Peckham has as much common with a plumber in Perth, or somebody starting a business in Streatham as somebody in Stirling. And the point I make is very simple. It's this: look, at a time when we've had the Brexit vote, at a time when we've had the election of President Trump, at a time when we've had the rise of narrow nationalist and populist movements across the world, now is not the time to be, separating. Now is not the time to be dividing communities. And I just think now's the time to pull together and to unite. And I just think, I don't want to see one section of society pitted against another. I don't want to see one part of the country pitted against another. And I'm somebody who loves Scotland. I'm somebody who loves the United Kingdom. And I just think we've got multiple identities as a Londoner, as a Brit, as somebody who's a trade unionist, as somebody who's a father. And we should be trying to bring people together rather than separating them.
Why, Catherine, why do you feel that he traduced half of the population of Scotland?
Well, because basically it's saying that anybody who supports independence is racist.
No, I didn't say that, Catherine. And Catherine, you've got to be very careful. Because look, I'm sorry to interrupt you, because I feel quite strongly about this, because what's happened is this.
It's racist.
Well, let me tell you why. I understand why you think that, because, and I say this without wishing to criticise you, because you may read a tweet from an SNP politician or an SNP activist rather than reading or listening to my speech. I didn't say that. And I've been very careful in the last few years not to, for example, call UKIP racist or those who vote for UKIP. I've been very careful not to call the Republican Party or President Trump racist. And I would certainly not call the Nats racist or bigoted. What I am saying, though, is in this of all times, we should be pulling together rather than pulling apart.
You did change the text of the speech in the 14 hours.
No, I didn't, James. Let me tell you what I did was this. On the journey to Perth, I was told that the Scottish Nats were trying to give the impression that I was accusing half of Scotland of being racist. So, I did media interviews before my speech, making it quite clear. I'm not calling nationalists racist or bigoted. And again, to make it quite clear, I clarified in my speech, I'm not calling nationalists bigoted or racist, but everything I said in my speech in the draft, I delivered at Perth. And, I'm not calling anybody racist. What I'm saying is, at this of all times, let's pull together rather than pulling apart.
The phrase, there was no difference. There's no difference between those who want to divide Scottish and English people and the division sought by racist or religious bigots.
Separation. I don't think we should be separating. I think we should be pulling together.
So their goal might be similar, but their motivations are very different. The
point is, look, if you're somebody who believes in Scottish independence, you're not a racist. What I'm saying is that this of all times, you've had the Brexit, you've had President Trump being elected, you've got the rise of these narrow populist parties across Europe. Look at Austria, look at France, look what's happening in the Netherlands. We shouldn't be pulling away. We should be sticking together.
Catherine, would you like to come back briefly?
Yes, you've just done it again, because you've mentioned I wouldn't call a Trump supporter a racist. I wouldn't call a UKIP supporter a racist. I wouldn't call independence supporter racist. So you've just lined us up in that rogues gallery. So you've done it again, basically. So no apology from you, and
Oh, Catherine, listen, Catherine, can I be clear? I'm not apologising. For the avoidance of doubt, I'm not apologising. What I'm saying is I've not called the nationalist movement racist or bigoted. What I'm saying is at this time we should be pulling together rather than pulling apart.
Yeah, what about the plumber in Milan or the plumber? We're being dragged away from them. And there are different. Nationalism is not just Scottish nationalism. There's also unionist is a kind of nationalism. Now, which nationalism brought us Brexit? Which one is currently making an EU citizen, of which I'm one, feel unwelcome and scared for their future? Which sort of nationalist is Lord Tebbit when he tells us?
I don't know that Sadiq Khan can speak for Lord Tebbit. You're not apologising because you didn't mean to imply that any of these people were racist, and yet Catherine's point, I think, is that by lumping them in, the Scottish nationalists, with Trump supporters or UKIP supporters, who many people believe possibly are more deserving of that label, rightly or wrongly, she's upset at being lumped in with them by you just now.
You can't escape the fact, Catherine, over the last 2 years we've had these big events: Brexit, President Trump's election, the rise of populist movements. I think you can't escape that. And my point, that's the point that Johnny made in the first call he made about London is open, is I think the great thing about the London story is we don't simply tolerate difference, we celebrate it, we embrace it, and we respect it. And as somebody who's a proud patriot, I love the United Kingdom. I think London needs the United Kingdom. I think the United Kingdom needs London. I love Scotland. I want Scotland to remain part of the United Kingdom. I don't apologise for any of that.
Catherine, thank you. The 0 days of strikes pledge that you made in the mayoral campaign, how's that looking?
Well, let me be clear, James. As far as this suggestion that I made a pledge, what I said was this: I think strikes are a sign of failure. I don't think there should be any strikes at all. What I'll try and do is, unlike the previous mayor, talk to those who work their socks off working in public transport, whether it's driving buses, whether it's on our tubes, whether it's on London Overground, to make sure we've got better industrial relations. Any business will tell you the way to increase productivity, the way to improve performance is to get on with your staff. And so we're doing that. There have been 40% fewer strikes since over the last 10 months than when the previous guy was the mayor. Skies rocketed when the previous guy was the mayor. I've not only frozen fares, not only introduced the night tube and the hopper fare, but also we've got 40% fewer strikes, which I think is a win-win-win.
Just you mentioned the frozen fares. When I'm out on the street, as it were, this is one of the things that people pick up on constantly, and that they feel that you misled them on that pledge. You know that they do, and you know why. So let's not engage in the to and fro.
Let me talk directly with this. Over the last 8 years, when Boris Johnson was the mayor, the fares in London went up by 42%. 42% over the last 8 years, the most expensive fares in all of Europe. The business plan published by the previous mayor, which the Conservative candidate, a man called Zach Goldsmith, adopted, was to increase the fares by a further 17% over the next 4 years. I promised to freeze TfL fares. I have frozen TfL fares. But you know that
commuters felt that you were going to freeze their fares.
Let me do that. So I've frozen TfL fares. Now, the issue, not unreasonable question that you're raising is, what about the travel card? What about the daily cap? The reality is I've got no powers to freeze the travel card and the daily cap. Why?
But people feel misled. You know they do. You know they do. Because that freezing fares made people feel their fare would be frozen, and you didn't have the powers even to make that promise.
But my point is this. If I can freeze TfL fares, why can't the government hold to account these private companies making huge profits? They're increasing their fares at a time when the service is abysmal. They're increasing their fares, rather. I'm freezing my fares and making savings in TfL. And the point is simple. If I can do it, why can't they? If I can hold TfL to account, why can't the government hold private train operating companies to account?
Staying with transport, just have a listen to this.
Then I went back to work on the 4th of January, and then on the 1st of February, I'm a HGV driver. The DVLA revoked my driving licence, so taken away my job and my income all in one go. It's pretty difficult, to be honest with you, because we don't know how long, where the next penny's coming from, how long money's going to last, or anything like that, or even if I'm going to get a job or get some sort of income.
Matthew Parnell was on the Croydon tram, and his life's fallen apart.
Matthew and many others. Look, I mean, James, I've been the mayor for 10 months. November the 9th was the worst day since I became mayor. For Matthew and many others, it was probably the worst day of their lives. 7 people lost their lives at Sandylands. What I did immediately was to say to TfL is we've got to help the families, the bereaved families, but also those who are injured. Dozens and dozens were injured. Can I just tell you what we've done? Firstly, can I say to Matthew, please get in touch with us. There's more help we can do in the interim.
We'll make that happen.
That's really important. We said to families, get independent legal advice. Really important you do. So I say this as a former lawyer. Really good to get proper advocacy for you. We set up what's called the Sarah Hope line. It was a phone number you could ring up and get assistance straight away. Things like travel costs, visiting hospitals, funeral expenses, really important stuff. We did straight away. I also authorised what's called interim payment. So we admitted liability straight away. There's 2 issues when it comes to this. One is who's liable. 2 is compensation to help you. Liability is admitted straight away. The issue is compensation. We set up interim payments to help families who've got immediate expenses and stuff. And Matthew, I understand, would have got assistance. If he needs more help in interim, please contact us and we'll try and get you interim help straight away. Nothing can make up for the injury Matthew suffered and the bereavement suffered, but we've got to make sure we alleviate some of that distress. So please get in touch with us and we'll try and resolve this.
And we'll keep an eye on that as well. Should we take another call?
Yeah, the next call is, I think, Alex in Richmond. Apologies if I got that wrong. Alex, is it you?
Right. He's in my writing is struggling.
That's right, that's fine. A couple of weeks ago, I was on Nick Ferrari's show asking Sir Bernard Hogan-Howe why he hadn't done more to stand up to the government against police cuts. And his answer was he had done as much as he could. Excuse me. He'd done as much as he could. And yet we're facing more and more police cuts. Now, he said he'd had to save another 6 million or something. I think it may have been more than that. before 2019. Why don't you stand up to the government? They cannot keep cutting the police numbers.
Thanks, Alex. I've been accused of many things in the past, but not standing up to this government. But I'll take that in the spirit of telling. Look, I think you've got the figures wrong. Actually, it's worse than the 6 million cuts in the future. Over the next 4 years, we will be losing at least £400 million from the Met Police budget. On top of that, because we're an international capital city, we should be getting additional funds because think of protests, diplomatic protection, the visits of presidents of other countries. We only get half the funding we get from that, and the real fare we've got coming around the corner is the government intends to change the way the police are funded, the funding formula, which means we could lose even more money. So look, I am standing up to the government, lobbying the government, working with MPs of all parties, council leaders of all parties, police officers and others to say to the government, look, we can't take any more. We've made massive savings over the last few years, and Bernard deserves our thanks for doing that without cutting frontline police officers. Police buildings being sold, police stations being sold, staff, back office staff being lost. But there's only so far we can go, Alex, without threatening the safety of Londoners. And you may have seen in today's press the report from Her Majesty's Inspector of Constabulary expressing concern about the rationing of services as a consequence of government cuts. And my message to the government is very simple. You know, London is, I'm afraid, a target for terrorists, for bad people. London is a population that is growing. There are complex needs we have as a city. You can't cut funding anymore without, I'm afraid, there being consequences for our city. And I'd ask the Home Secretary to work with me to lobby the Chancellor and the government that there should be no further cuts to the Met Police budget.
How much support do you get from the Leader of the Opposition when you're exerting these pressures upon the Home Secretary and Simla?
Well, I mean, you know, the Labour Party, the Shadow Home Secretary is Diane Abbott. She's also today, you know, expressed support for the police, but said to the government no more cuts.
When did you last speak to her?
My office was in touch with her last week, I think. There was a police budget debate, so we're regularly in touch because there was a debate around this issue last week in Parliament. Yvette Cooper, the chair of the Home Affairs Select Committee, is also a Labour colleague. But you know, we've got to, as Londoners, recognise that I'm afraid we are a target for bad people unless the government supports us. The consequences of London's safety is could be one of the prices we pay.
And Jeremy Corbyn, how much support do you get from him when you're embarking upon these missions for Londoners?
I mean, I meet Jeremy Corbyn regularly. He's the leader of the Labour Party, and he's got a very important job holding the government to account, but also to, you know, show the British public that we are a credible government in waiting.
So, how much support do you get from him when you're exerting pressure on?
Oh, I mean, the Labour Party in Parliament helps me, you know, when I need their help, and it's really important that we work together. By the way, similarly,
when did you last sit down with him?
A few weeks ago. I think we're due to meet very shortly. Our offices again have been in touch about the next meeting. There's supposed to be diarised meetings and stuff, and you know, it's really important that we do meet regularly because obviously we both, you know, have a goal of addressing the issues that there are in London, and any help I can give to show the rest of the country how a Labour administration can be pro-business, can be competent, can provide value for money is one I think I'm sure Jeremy and the team appreciates.
Last call, James, is Ali in Croydon. Hi, Ali.
Hi there, how are you?
Not bad, thank you, Ali.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Sadiq, for taking my call.
My pleasure.
Role model for many of us. I just want to ask you one small question. You know, I've got 4 stores in city, and the business rates are growing and growing up, you know, and we are really struggling. I mean, what are you doing about it? You know, why government is increasing, you know, the business rates more and more?
So what can you do as Mayor of London to protect London business people from these business rate hikes in some sectors?
So, Ali, I met with the Chancellor yesterday, Philip Hammond, to impress upon him the dire consequences of the business rates rise in London. You will get your bills, as you know, in early March and expect to pay it from April onwards. And there needs to be better relief for small businesses. There needs to be better relief for London businesses. We are basically paying a huge increase in London for cuts to be made across the country, and London can't take it. And so, in addition to me lobbying the government, the Federation of Small Businesses, the London Chamber of Commerce, London First, London CBI are also lobbying the government. And the government's got to reconsider.
Are they bending?
Well, I think so, because, you know, some businesses will fall off the cliff because they can't deal with the increase in business rates on top of the increase in rents, consequences of Brexit. And so the government's got, you know, if the government really is pro-business, they need to support the most pro-business Mayor London's ever had.
When is President Trump coming to London?
You probably know as much as I do.
Come on, you're the mayor.
I've not been told when he's coming to London. And as far as, look, I've got nothing against President Trump coming to London. What I've got an issue with is for there to be a state visit for a president who very recently has ended the refugee program and introduced a travel ban on people from 7 countries. And I just think, look, we have a special relationship with the USA. I've got many friends who are Americans. I love America, love Americans. But when you're good mates with somebody, of course you stand shoulder to shoulder with them in times of adversity. But when they're wrong, you've got to call them out and say you're wrong. And we don't want to give the impression we're condoning the ending of the refugee program. We don't give the impression we are supporting this travel ban by rolling out the red carpet for a state visit.
Would you visit America?
As long as a special exception wasn't made for me. During the presidential campaign, you'll recall, Trump campaigned on the basis of no Muslims being allowed in America. When I was elected the mayor, he said he'd make an exception for me. And the simple point I made to Donald Trump, as he was then, was, don't make an exception for me. I'm not special. What about all the millions around the world who love America, want to go to America to visit, study, to holiday, to do business? Why don't make a special exception for me? So if it's the case that there is a ban in place, it's extended, and he's making an exception for me, then no thank you. But if everyone's allowed to go, then yeah, of course.
We're already out of time, but I'll just give you a quick opportunity if you want to show the red card to the Garden Bridge.
Look, I've been quite clear about this. I mean, you rightly raise this with me on a regular basis. Look, I'm not. Look, there's the Garden Bridge Trust, there's the landowners, and there's the councils. My role is this: I've said no more public funding for this project. Boris Johnson, greenlighted £30 million. No more money from me, and that's a promise that I made. A promise I'll keep.
We're going to start doing this every month. The first Thursday of every month, you're going to come and join us.
There's a condition you have breakfast before I come on. Otherwise,
breakfast means breakfast for the, that, and it means anybody who feels they haven't had the opportunity to get their question on the board today can just wait 4 weeks. Sadiq Khan, Mayor of London, many thanks indeed.
My pleasure.
You are listening to James O'Brien on LBC. The time is 10:34. Simon Conway has your headlines.
London Mayor Sadiq Khan has told LBC he hasn't accused Scottish nationalists of being racist. At the weekend, he said there was no difference between nationalism and those who try to divide us on the basis of our background, race or religion. The Mayor has clarified his comments.
I've been very careful in the last few years not to, for example, call UKIP racist or those who vote for UKIP. I've been very careful not to call the Republican